So I don't read a whole lot of short stories, but certain authors I really love, and if they put out a collection of short stories, I will read it. The book we're going to talk about today is Nat Cassidy's I Know a Place. Stephen King wrote the intro to this, and in the intro he says, "These stories are effing great. They rule." And let me tell you, these stories are effing great, and they do rule. There's a lot more to the intro than just that. He says a lot of other things. I have loved pretty much everything I've read by Nat. Last year, one of my favorite horror reads of the year in my top 10 was When the Wolf Comes Home, and it was absolutely awesome. And then I've loved Mary and Nestlings, and now this book. It's just like my opinion, man. If you like horror and you haven't checked out Nat Cassidy yet, I would definitely recommend him. So this book has a bunch of short stories, but it also has the novella Rest Stop, which was released prior as a standalone, and I hadn't had the chance to read that. Honestly, it's such a great horror story, and it's about 128 pages, so that's like the first story in the book, and then the other stories that follow are shorter. And so I had three really just favorites, which one was Rest Stop, another was Run for Your Life, which is a story that has to do with the Beatles. And then there's also Into the Life, which is about this woman. She's found dead in a stairwell and she has a look of abject horror on her face. And there's this whole like weird backstory of where she came from, like how she was at this yoga retreat and some weird effed up stuff happened. And so that was really good. I thought all of these stories were really good, but those were definitely my favorites. So Rest Stop follows the story of this guy, Abe, and he ends up stopping at this gas station on his way across the country. He's going to meet up with his family because one of his family members is in the hospital. And he gets to the rest stop, and there's like cars in the parking lot, but like it's very quiet, like maybe a little too quiet. And he goes inside, no one's in there, and he goes to use the restroom, and then he finds himself locked inside the restroom. And a bunch of horrific things then start to happen once he's in there. Yeah, what happened to the other people who were in there? And at some point, there's like a note that's put under the door. You should be glad you were in there, or something along those lines. It is messed up and brutal and gruesome and weird. And then what happens and who the perpetrator of like these horrific crimes thought he was like added another element to it. I'm not going to say who the killer guy thought he was because that just like made the story, in my opinion, even better. And especially the reaction from like the other character, Abe, like it's messed up and oh man, it's so good. Yeah, and then you have all these different stories. You have a couple that are like these meet cute stories that are like foreshadowing of horror of people who meet in a bar and who the one person is, and then another one that is like a really effed up situation. And they're coming from very dark backgrounds, and will they actually, try to give this date a chance? I'm not describing this really well, but those were really well done, I thought. They were really interesting. They follow basically the whole thing is like a conversation between two people and, what's lurking in the background, what's going on with these people's history and this, that, and the other. Then you have another story that's like about the future generation of children that is gonna probably be really effed up. And then there's a scary, like, Christmas type story that was very disturbing. There is a story about a ventriloquist story that was super creepy. And I think that, like, the dummies that are used for ventriloquism are already creepy enough, so I hate them. It's like dolls, too. I don't like creepy dolls either, anything like that. So, like, basically, the dummy is a big creepy doll, so, it adds to the horror elements of that. There's another story of this guy whose wife died in a car accident, and then he starts to see her again, but then, she is gone before he can really say anything, and it takes a weird effed up turn, and he thinks he's going crazy, but he's not sure, and so he starts talking to this doctor, and then weird stuff ensues from that point on. And there's another story about this woman who had a love from her past where they had went and they had watched a lunar eclipse, and there wasn't supposed to be one for another really long time, a number of years, and she's like, let's make a pact, to meet up at this next eclipse no matter where we are and what in life, and, it turns out that that person had died, so will they meet up with her? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, except for I know what happens, but I'm gonna tell you. You gotta read it to find out. There's a weird story about family lineage and old creepy castles and the deranged people who used to live there. And then you have one that's like about watching a video that makes horror ensue. There's also like a mushroom horror, which I like to call sporer horror, but it's almost like a poem. And it's this weird, like, you can do it as an interactive thing if you have a group of friends to like read it with each other. But I just read it by myself because I don't know. I didn't have like 5 or 6 people to go read it with, and then I'd have to photocopy the pages or something. So I like the idea of that though. I thought that was kind of cool to have like some sort of interactive thing that you could do with friends if you have a bunch of friends who like to read and do weird stuff like that, which was really cool. Like I said, I thought the stories were really great. They're weird, they're scary, some are hopeful, some are not. Darkness comes for us all. But honestly, like, this is up there in some of the best short stories that I've ever read. One of my favorite short story books is Never Whistle at Night. Like, every story in that is awesome. And I feel the same way about this one. You know, you read some short story books and it's like, some stories are really good, and then some you're like, I don't even know if I like this. And then you're like, oh, this one's okay. But this book, like, they're all good to awesome. Like, really freaking good. So, if you like Nat Cassidy, definitely check it out. If you haven't read Nat Cassidy, it might be nice to start with a book of short stories to kind of get a feel for like what his writing's like, especially if you read one thing in this, just read Rest Stop. I would also say if you don't want one that's as long, Run for Your Life is also really, really fantastic. So with short stories, you can pick it up, put it down. You're not committed to a full book. And I know, like, you know, not everyone has time to read a big, huge book, but a book of short stories, you don't have a huge time commitment there, you know? And even with the longer one that's like 123 pages, pick it up, put it down, get back to it when you want to. With that one, like, I could not put that down. That kept me turning pages. I went and I sat outside and I started reading it, and I was like, holy crap, I couldn't put it down. It was so captivating and effed up and so good. So if any of that sounds good, definitely check it out. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.